Propagating succulents from leaves is so much fun and can be very rewarding. While it is usually quite easy to reproduce succulents from leaves, there are a few things to know. Not all succulents propagate from leaves, some are harder to propagate this way than others, and all propagation should be done during the plant's growing season, otherwise the leaf may die. In this video we will primarily have a look at how to remove leaves from succulents for the purpose of propagation. I will demonstrate on a number of different plants and we'll also look at succulents that are hard to or not able to reproduce from leaves. Now let's have a look at how to remove leaves from succulents. Some succulents will give their leaves willingly, while others seem like they have them welded on. Often it is best not to force things and try different methods instead. I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. For instance, this Sedaveria starburst is one of the best succulents to try leaf propagation with. The leaves come off easily and have near 100% success rate. One of the most important things is that the leaf comes off the plant intact. The end cannot be broken and nothing of the leaf can be left on the stalk. Leaves that are shriveling and yellowing, just like this one here, are in the process of dying off and are unlikely to propagate. Only leaves that are taken off entire will have a chance at producing a new plant. You can see just how easy it is to pull a leaf of this plant. A slight tug will dislodge it and not a single leaf breaks. I'll set all of these leaves aside and show you what to do with them in the next video. Now let's try a different plant. This here is Pachyveria clavifolia cristata and it too is easy to propagate from leaves. Cresting is a mutation and leaves from such plants may or may not produce crested plants. In the case of this Pachyveria, the mutation is stable and many of the leaves will end up growing into a crested succulent. Some will also grow in a rosette shape. Next up is Echeveria pinwheel revolution. This succulent grows well from leaves, but they can be a bit tricky to separate. But first let's get rid of these dying leaves to create space. I'm going to try this leaf as it has good wiggle space to the left and right. It is a lot harder to separate and I have to try hard not to break it. And there it goes. I've managed to make a small tear on the side, but as long as the end point comes off clean, the leaf should be viable. When dealing with plants like these, hold the leaf as close to the stalk as possible. Pulling by the end is likely to break the leaf. Now this is what you don't want to see, leftovers on the stalk. It means a leaf is broken and it will not grow. I've also managed to stop this one up. It is a lot harder than it looks and this plant is really holding on to its leaves. Let's have one more go. And it looks like it might be okay, but there is a little bit missing on the right here. And so there is a good chance this leaf will not make it. Now, if a succulent is resisting to give up its leaves, it may sometimes be better to just leave it for another day. I will demonstrate the reason on this Echeveria violet queen. So far I have managed to break every single leaf on this plant, and it is not because I don't know how to take leaves off succulents. As mentioned earlier, some succulents are just not good at reproducing from leaves. Not only can it be difficult to separate the leaves from violet queen, they also rarely grow into a new plant. There are ways to make it easier to separate leaves and I will talk about them later on, but for now I'm going to leave this plant be as I seem to be fighting a losing battle. Some succulents, such as this Echeveria Hercules, grow low to the ground and it can be difficult to access the leaves. This plant is also hanging on to its leaves and to get better access I'm going to take it out of the pot. When out of the pot, I can see what I'm doing much better and can push the potting mix and roots down a bit to reach all the way to where the stalk and the leaf meet. And success! We have a viable leaf. Echeveria Hercules reproduces very well from leaves and most will end up growing a new plant. I'm going to separate a couple more. Once a bit of space is created on the stalk, the leaves will separate much easier. The first leaf on plants like this one is always the hardest. While this is not always the rule, but applies often, succulents that reproduce easy from leaves tend to give them up much more willingly. Another rule that applies often but not always is that succulents with thick, chunky leaves such as this Echeveria blue metal are easy to propagate from leaves. This leaf is dead and I'm just going to discard it. This is just so easy, I don't even have to try hard. And one last one. Not a single leaf broken. Echeveria cantae here is a good example of thinner leafed succulents not happy to be parted with its leaves. Yep, just breaking them all. No matter how gentle I try to be, the leaves are just breaking. Oh yeah. Not looking too good. Okay, I'm going to have one last try and then I'm going to leave it. Sometimes it's just not worth it destroying a plant for the sake of propagation. Just like the cantae, Echeveria glauca is also not one to make it easy and the leaves often break. On the plus side, glauca produces lots of offsets to propagate. Yep, just breaking. Now let's try a different plant altogether. This is Kalanchoe tomentosa and it is one of the easiest succulents to propagate by leaf and will grow a new plant even when the leaf breaks. I will show you an example in a second. Just a couple of gentle nudges to the side and the leaf is dislodged. Both Kalanchoe tomentosa leaves I'm holding have been broken, but still manage to grow new shoots. Many Kalanchoe will grow when the leaf is damaged and are incredibly easy to propagate from leaf. Next up is a Crassula ovata variegata, and the leaves are pretty easy to take off and will produce a new plant most of the time. I've chosen this plant due to its variegation, as people often wonder whether variegated plants produce variegated leaf babies. Most of the time the variegation is not passed on to the leaf baby, but this topic needs a video of its own. I do have a blog post about it and will post the link in the description. To grow plants like this Senecio herrerianus from leaf can be a bit of a hit and miss and not really worth it. For the leaf to be viable, a section of the stalk needs to be present. It takes ages for any meaningful growth to happen and not many leaves will end up growing strings. Plants like this are much better to propagate from cuttings. And the same goes for string of hearts. While it is possible to propagate this plant from leaf, it is not really worth it. It can take over a year for the leaf to start growing. And the last plant for today. Here we've got Aeonium Mardi Gras. It is easy to take leaves from any Aeonium, but it's pointless as they do not reproduce from leaves. Many succulents do not have the ability to grow a whole new plant from leaves. This is a list of succulents that are hard to propagate from leaves. Some of these will never grow from a single leaf, but some can, though the success rate is very low. For instance, Cotyledon tomentosa can be propagated from leaf, but it's difficult and most leaves will die in the process. Last but not least, some tips and tricks. Firstly, if leaves are difficult to remove, dry the plant out until the leaves start getting a bit wrinkly. Dry leaves are often easier to remove and less likely to break. Secondly, not all plants will propagate from leaf and it is best to try and find out before you pluck a succulent apart. Thirdly, if you're not sure whether a succulent propagates from a leaf or not, try out a couple of leaves first. And lastly, only propagate in the growing season. Many succulents will not grow from leaf during dormancy, which is usually winter. And that's it for today. In my next video, I will demonstrate how to store and plant succulent leaves to get the best results. I hope you found this video useful and thank you for watching.